Just when I was wondering what was going on, my boss, Alex, came striding over and casually patted my shoulder, saying, "Hard work, Dan, but you're fired today." Just like that, I was abruptly kicked out of the company I had served for 20 years. "Long time no see, Mr. Johnson. Actually, I just got fired," I said. At my words, Mr. Johnson, the president, was momentarily speechless. "What about the patent? If the company doesn't have my patent, it will go bankrupt. But I'm fired, so I'll take my leave." Ha ha ha. At this point, all I could do was laugh, and I heard a baffled voice from Mr. Johnson. "My name is Dan. I'm a 45-year-old office worker. Originally, I worked in a repair shop, but about 20 years ago, I became friends with a guy named Mike at a seminar. Through that connection, I joined the same company as him. I always loved assembling machines and inventing, so it was a stroke of luck to be placed in the product development department. Mike seemed to be in a decent position in a major corporation, and it was only because of his referral that I could join the company. Normally, with my level of education, I wouldn't even have been able to apply for a job there. Grateful to him, I spent 20 years working relentlessly. I built good relationships with other employees in the product development department, and before I knew it, I became the central figure in development and eventually rose to the position of a manager. Once I was in that role, everyone started coming to me with various consultations, and we began tackling more innovative and large-scale developments. As a result of our unity, several of our products won design awards, and we even created some hit products that represented the company. As long as we had that product series, the company would be secure. I'm proud of what we accomplished, and it seems the employees gained confidence too. The product development department was sailing smoothly until one day, dark clouds began to loom. There was a change in personnel, and the department head was replaced. The previous head was a good person who listened to us, but the new one was very arrogant. He wasn't interested in our research and development, focusing only on the profits they generated. He insisted on developing only such products, and if development was delayed, he would yell and force us to work overtime until we caught up. Our previously bright workplace had turned into hell, and so my confrontation with Alex began. I suggested daily operational improvements, but he would just say, "If you have time to talk about that, then work." Even if I presented new product developments, most of my proposals were ignored, and I was asked for meaningless improvements. If a proposal was accepted and moved towards productization, I was rushed to complete it, given absurd instructions, and forced to work overtime until it was done. Once we managed to release a product, and it passed inspection and was launched, all the credit and achievements were claimed by Alex. Before I knew it, everything from the authorship of the proposals to the details was rewritten by him. As a result, employee motivation plummeted, and some started leaving the company. Currently, only those who cannot resign immediately due to family or financial reasons remain. Knowing we couldn't choose to leave, Alex exploited us even more. Overtime became the norm, and we were forced to handle even his tasks. He would just give orders and leave at the regular time, leaving all the remaining work to be completed by us within the day. As a result, we continued to struggle through days handling an enormous workload with fewer staff. I approached Alex about increasing staff, but as expected, he ignored it. Only the weak ones quit. The ones who stayed should cover for them. He himself has absolutely no interest in development work, let alone involvement or assistance. Indeed, the only saving grace was that Alex, who had never been involved in development, didn't interfere. However, we are constantly demanded to produce high-quality products and proposals. No matter how good the products we create, they end up being taken over by him, a fact that is silently driving the staff to despair. Feeling exploited and hopeless, watching my colleagues becoming increasingly haggard day by day, I wondered what I should do. At this rate, the product development department will fall apart. The skills of those who have worked so hard up to this point are high. Honestly, they could probably make it in another company, but finding a new job takes time, and resigning voluntarily means a reduced severance. Besides, I doubt Alex would let them resign normally. That fear has led many to resign themselves to staying. Sure, we receive a salary, but considering the overtime, it's not worth it. Moreover, despite working beyond regular hours, Alex seems to be covering up that fact. Perhaps the only option is to speak directly to high-ups, but that's a last resort. I have many grievances against Alex, but I care about this company and don't want to escalate things and tarnish its image. Does he really want to turn his own company into a black company by enforcing such unpaid overtime? His actions could damage the company. If rumors spread, it would be more than just a departmental issue. It could severely harm the entire company and lead to many job losses. How did someone like him become a manager? I love this company and my job, but I can't agree with prioritizing seniority over merit. Actually, people unrelated to the work like him, being in major roles and exploiting employee achievements is happening. I'm not against the old ways and methods, but there are certainly harmful traditions that still exist. Alex's favorite saying is, back in the day, this was all normal. It's standard for junior colleagues to respect their superiors, right? He exudes arrogance that might have been acceptable in the past. I wish you would realize that times have changed, and someone needs to say that. Maybe that someone should be me. I steeled myself and decided to have a proper conversation with Alex. So, what do you want? That day, I called Alex to the conference room. He obviously didn't hide his annoyance but agreed to talk. I have a business dinner later. I'm not as free as you guys, Alex said, laughing. But we're not free either. In fact, we're cutting back on sleep because of you. Alex, you really need to change your behavior. Do you realize what you're doing could be illegal? Ha! What are you talking about? You guys are choosing to work overtime? I never forced or recommended it. I was utterly disgusted by his blatant lies. Doesn't he realize that if someone sues, the company could be in crisis? The staff is at their limit. Please return the achievements and rights you've taken from them. I pleaded deeply, but all I got in return was his loud, mocking laughter. What are you talking about? You should be happy to work under me. You like your job. That's why you don't quit, right? That can't be true. Everyone's at their breaking point. Do you intend to ruin this department? If it collapses over this, then so be it. With that, Alex brushed past me and left the room. I never thought communication with him would be this impossible. I let out a heavy sigh. I have to report this to the higher-ups somehow. Reluctantly, I worked overtime with the staff that day before heading home. The next day, as I entered the office thinking of ways to have a serious talk with upper management, all eyes of the employees were on me. Just when I was wondering what was going on, Alex walked up to me and casually patted my shoulder, saying, "Hard work, Dan, but you were fired today." And just like that, I was abruptly kicked out of the company I had served for 20 years. Holding my bag, I left the building in shock, and after a while, anger started to bubble up inside me. I took out my cell phone and called a certain number. "It's been a while, Dan. It's rare to get a call from you." The person on the other end was Mike, the one who had invited me to join this company. I should tell him what happened. "Long time no see, Mr. Johnson. Actually, I just got fired." At my words, Mr. Johnson, the president, was momentarily speechless. "What about the patent? If the company doesn't have my patent, it will go bankrupt. But I'm fired, so I will take my leave." All I could do was laugh, and I heard a baffled voice from Mr. Johnson. Then I had to make a beeline back to the company I had just left. Mr. Johnson had called me into his office. "What in the world is going on? Can you explain it to me?" Sitting across from him on the sofa, I took a sip of the coffee he offered. "Mr. Johnson, what was your intention in appointing Alex as head of product development? I did approve it, but I thought there wouldn't be any problems. Was it because of seniority?" At my question, Mr. Johnson quietly nodded. "Well, it's a tradition, you know, promoting someone without any issues." Was he really someone without any issues? What exactly happened in the product development department? Mr. Johnson became serious as I questioned him. I then reported everything that had happened in detail. He listened to my words quietly without interrupting. After I finished, he apologized. "I had no idea it had gotten to this point. I'm really sorry." "There's no need for you to apologize, Mr. Johnson." "Well, indeed, some responsibility lies with you." "That's right. As the president of this company, I am responsible for the actions of my employees. With a sigh, Mr. Johnson dropped his shoulders. If such things are happening under my watch, it means I have failed in leadership. Moreover, to fire you, yes, it was too reckless, especially not knowing about your patents. It was an emotional decision that put the company in jeopardy. I said in a tone of disbelief. Alex probably fired me to set an example, but as someone who has been involved in product development for 20 years, I hold several patents. If I leave, the loss to the company would be immeasurable. Especially if I were to join a rival company, it would be catastrophic. Alex exposed the company to risk just to flaunt his power. Such childish and thoughtless actions gave me a headache. But Mr. Johnson seemed to have a different view. Indeed, Alex's performance as a manager has been good, but I haven't heard of any extraordinary achievements. Looking me straight in the eyes, he continued, in fact, since he became manager, there have been many complaints about the increase in resignations. Issues like overtime and taking credit for others' work are news to me. Indeed, the high number of resignations must have been apparent. But where did all the plans and awards that I thought Alex had monopolized go? From the company's side, bonuses and awards are supposed to go to the proposers, not Alex. But you guys haven't received them, have you? Mr. Johnson asked me, seeking confirmation, and I shook my head firmly. No. If we had received those, many of the staff who resigned might have stayed, especially the younger and more capable ones who couldn't endure the environment and left. It's a significant loss. Factional strife. Why does it always come to this? What do you mean? I asked Mr. Johnson about the true meaning behind his words. It seems there was a factional struggle when Mr. Johnson was appointed to his position against another presidential candidate. The upper management was split in half, creating a tense atmosphere. Alex belonged to the faction of Mr. Johnson's rival. When Mr. Johnson won the struggle and became the CEO, his opponent left the company. Having little connection with the upper management, I was unaware of such conflicts within the company. Well, I might have heard rumors but never paid much attention to them, nor was I involved. I was just happy that my benefactor had become the CEO. Mr. Johnson, you think the factional struggle is still relevant? Probably my rival left the company and now works for a competitor. Mr. Johnson's words made me realize something. The employees who resigned were probably poached by the rival company. I see, so Alex's tyrannical behavior was for that purpose. So Alex is connected to the other company. Not just him. There must be several people in significant positions involved, keeping it from reaching my ears. It was odd that such blatant injustice had occurred without any rumors reaching the upper management. Someone was manipulating and hiding the information. They are likely connected with the rival company, trying to bring down ours from the inside. A betrayal of our own company. But why would someone in a managerial position take such actions? Those connected probably have arrangements to be re-employed with good positions at the rival company if ours goes bankrupt. That's terrible. If our company collapses, many will lose their jobs, and even subcontractors will be affected. Yet such a cunning and cowardly way to destroy a company and ensure only those involved have secure jobs is appalling. They probably wanted you to resign, Nan. You've contributed much more to our company than they anticipated, so they fired you? So they made up a reason to fire me because I wouldn't resign. Yes, as I said before, you hold the patents. If you leave, it would be a tremendous loss for us. Mr. Johnson continued, frowning. The plan was likely to poach you after you left. I can't believe it. I think it's true. You probably have received an offer within a few days. That explains the sudden firing. It's frustrating to think they expected me to easily sway, but I wouldn't sell out everything to a rival company, at least not while Mr. Johnson is still here. I wouldn't let my patents go to another company. They probably never considered that. Indeed, you've been underestimated. Good thing you're a man of integrity, Dan. Mr. Johnson's face finally relaxed, having been tense all this time. Anyway, I have no intention of approving your dismissal. If any such documents are submitted, I'll handle it immediately. So, does that mean I'm not fired? Of course, I want to build this company together with you. Mr. Johnson's words finally allowed me to feel truly relieved. With that, I knew what had to be done. It looks like we need a major cleanup, he said with a calm smile. though his eyes burned with anger. From there, it was a race against time. While Alex and his crew still believed I was fired, Mr. Johnson gathered trusted employees and executives to share information. Together, we uncovered numerous discrepancies and gathered evidence. Mr. Johnson's prediction that Alex and his team would let their guard down after they thought they had achieved their goal of firing me was correct. The product development department seemed despondent after my departure, but Alex was in high spirits, leaving on time for a dinner meeting. We identified the executives and employees who went to the same location. While they were enjoying their banquet, we gathered solid evidence of illicit document removal and tampering. A considerable amount of funds and personnel were involved, and we discovered that technology had been leaked to a rival company. Now all that was left was to use this evidence to completely cleanse the company of its rot. Then came Monday. Some employees and executives who came to work turned pale as they heard the unexpected decrees from Mr. Johnson at the morning assembly. "What do you mean I'm fired?" Alex erupted. Others who received the same fate of dismissal, transfer, or demotion joined in his uproar. Their cries of unjust treatment and threats of lawsuits were met with my scoff. "What? Why are you here?" "You were fired." Alex noticed me and started to make a fuss, but Mr. Johnson interrupted him. "I don't recall approving that." "Who exactly gave you the authority to fire Dan?" That is Alex's." Eyes darted around, but no one met his gaze. Some major employees were conspicuously avoiding eye contact. Most likely it was that employee who processed my dismissal. Alex thought bitterly. "Well, as for the unjust personal matter, let's explain the reasons for these personal changes and dismissals right here," Mr. Johnson said. Upon hearing this, the clamoring crowd turned pale. Some were caught by the security guards while attempting to physically attack the president in their rage. Before I knew it, the guards from the security company we contracted were strategically placed to suppress any potential riot. The employees who were unaware of the situation were initially frightened by the atmosphere. As the president started to explain the recent events, the room quieted down. Eventually, as they learned the whole story, their anger turned towards those who had betrayed the company, especially the product development department, which had been thoroughly trampled upon, was seething with rage. Their glares pierced Alex with the intensity of their long-held grievances. Realizing the depth of their resentment, Alex was visibly shaken and trembling. He probably understood better than anyone the depth of their hatred. Facing such murderous and scornful stares would unnerve anyone. Although there was no intention of pressing criminal charges, the company was prepared to sue them if they claimed unjust dismissal. Seemingly resigned to their fate, Alex and those involved in the wrongdoing slumped in defeat, some even collapsing to their knees and sobbing. It was a pitiful sight, but I felt no sympathy. They had brought this upon themselves. With their schemes exposed and their dismissals finalized, it was doubtful whether the rival company would still take them in. Still, some of them might have been hoping to find re-employment somewhere else. Personally, I doubted the reliability of a person who would cold-heartedly use and discard others in such a scheme. Regardless, the hellish days since Alex's appointment had come to an end like this, and so I returned to the product development department. Considering the future, the staff welcomed me back with open arms as I was promoted. The department, having lost many people and feeling quite empty, finally regained a peaceful and healthy working environment. New staff were to be recruited, but surprisingly, many of the employees who had resigned and not found jobs elsewhere returned, much to our delight. Apparently, they had been approached by the rival company but sensed something suspicious about the timing and declined. They were even threatened in some cases and had advised others planning to leave that it was better not to go to such a company. Fewer employees than we expected ended up going to the rival company. Some, including Alex, managed to find new jobs after their dismissal, but were apparently being worked hard as regular employees. In the end, there probably wasn't a high position left for those who had failed in their plan. Still, the fact that many employees who were well acquainted with our internal affairs had gone to the rival company was a significant blow to us. However, considering that we had eradicated the spread of corruption within the company, it was something we had to accept. Being able to continue working at a company I like, doing the job I love, for me, just being able to regain that everyday life is enough. Mr. Johnson, though known for his gentle and kind demeanor, was not someone to be taken lightly. Once the initial cleanup was over and as we approached the time to welcome new recruits, he reviewed and made significant reforms in the company's traditions. He thoroughly enforced compliance and transformed the system into a healthy and motivating environment where those with skills and achievements could advance. In the process, we reevaluated the direction of our products, rendering the information held by the employees who moved to the rival company almost worthless. Mr. Johnson, known for his calm and kind demeanor, gained renewed respect from many employees through the series of mass firings and new reforms. Some executives who had underestimated him now viewed his leadership with a sense of awe. Thus, our company grew, and a few years later became renowned